Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Horror Ghouls, the podcast where we talk about all things horror and review your favorite and least favorite and our least favorite horror movies. I'm Megan,
I'm T.
and we are your Horror Ghouls. Welcome. Pull up a chair or whatever. Don't, it's up to you, whatever you want. In today's episode, we find out what happens when you commune with spirits through your TV and your closet turns into a vacuum-like portal that transports you to the other side.
Ooh.
We could only be talking about 1982's horror slash fantasy Poltergeist, story by Steven Spielberg, directed by Tobe Hooper. Now, you may remember we had another run-in with Tobe Hooper not too long ago. So if you're like, that sounds familiar, he directed 1974's Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I believe we agreed was like the great granddaddy of horror films, or at least slasher
Yeah.
films. Is that what we said? Because first we said like
Yeah.
granddaddy, and then you were like, no, this is like the great great, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. Like it definitely is like the great granddaddy
Great.
of horror. Like I said, I respect Leatherface, don't respect Toby. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
I get it. But nonetheless, influential horror director Tobe Hooper, does he redeem himself with Poltergeist? Let's find out. So, in a nice home in a suburban neighborhood in California, I didn't bother to write down the name. It doesn't really matter. Nobody cares. We see a family asleep. The father, Steve, has fallen asleep in front of the TV, which is showing the old black and white static screen of yesteryear. The youngest daughter, Carol Ann, wakes up and is inexplicably drawn to the TV and speaks to the screen as if someone is speaking to her from within. The whole family awakes from hearing her speak slash scream at the TV because at one point she is screaming at the TV. And we see the rest of the family, Mom Diane, older sister Dana, and brother Robbie, all join Carol Ann and Steve to see what's going on. But we don't get to find out because we immediately cut away to the title screen. Um, and they're really making a point of showing us this community that they live in. It's an enormous neighborhood with model homes. There's kids playing and ice cream trucks and some a-hole teens knocking a man with beer off his bike. Um,
It's very idyllic, and
it
the
is.
music that they're playing, the score, which I forget who it's by, but the score is really pretty during the scene. Like you don't
Yeah.
even feel like you're going into a horror movie at this point. You feel like you're going into like an 80s maybe rom-com or something. It's
Yes.
it's very serene, except for the kids being little shits. Yeah.
Which they do. It's just part of it, right? So the man with the beer, he is headed to the home of the Freelings, which is the family we met just a moment ago. There is a football game on, and Steve and friends are super jazzed about it. They have issues with the TV reception, however, and Steve and his neighbor fight for dominance with the TV signal. It seems that if one of them changes the channel, it changes it for both TVs because of the location of their sets or whatever. I don't know how TVs from 1982 work. So, not sure
Yeah,
why
it's
that's
odd.
going
He
on.
said they had the same remote, and then they're like, move your TV. Like, yeah, I guess because they have the same TV and the same remote, maybe.
I
But
guess, but like,
it's
unless it was
odd,
something in like directly pointing at it, that wouldn't
right?
work.
Because
So, like,
back then, TVs that had remotes, I think they still had IR signals, so you would have to click it. Well, maybe not in 1982. That might have been ahead of its time. So that's weird. I don't know how
honestly,
that
even
worked.
for me, if I'm using my Roku remote, if it's not pointed directly at the thing, it doesn't work, you
Well,
know?
that probably has IR blaster.
A,
So.
a blaster. Wow, I wield such power. I didn't even know about. Wow. Okay. Well, um, unfortunately, this day, the family's pet bird has passed away. And they have a little funeral for him as Robbie looks on from the top of a giant, weird, kind of like knobby, bulbous tree in their yard that he has climbed all the way up. There's a big storm that night, and Robbie is unsettled by the big knobby tree that is right outside his window. It just unsettles him, something about it. It does also look like there's a face on a part of it,
It
and the
does.
face to me kind of looks like Freddy Krueger. I'm just saying.
Oh, interesting.
Profile.
Yeah,
Profile. Yeah. Um, Also, I just want to mention that Carol Ann and Robbie do share a room. So they're in the same room. Steve and Diane are in their room watching TV, smoking some weeds. Um,
Mhm.
Diane talks about sleepwalking. Apparently, Carol Ann has been sleepwalking a lot the last few weeks, and she used to when she was younger. So she's like, maybe I passed it down, whatever. She also expresses concern about them putting in their pool because they have to kind of dig it out of the ground. They're afraid Carol Ann's gonna walk right into it, sleepwalking. But I digress. In their shared room, Robbie and Carol Ann lay awake while the storm rages. Robbie is again freaked out, not just by the tree, but an enormous, scary clown doll thing that's in a chair at the end of his bed.
Just
He
facing him. Like,
That's
why?
facing him, right? But also like I couldn't foresee any child ever being like, I want that. Like it's terrifying. And it's huge. It's so huge. He actually throws his jacket over to cover his face because he's just not about it. Um, with the storm still going on, Robbie goes to his parents' room, interrupting his parents' flirt fest because they're really like having a nice time together. He's scared, and Steve goes to put him back to bed. Robbie is just like, listen, I don't like this tree. This tree is weird. This is when we find out that Steve works for the company that built this model home community, the one that they live in. He also tells him that the tree has been there a very long time. It's very old and it's strong and it's there to protect them. This is where the fun starts. This is when we start having fun. We have a nice time. So we get a loud crack of lightning. The two youngest kids wind up in their parents' bed, too freaked out by the storm. The TV is still on and playing some programming and then goes to static. We hear whispering from the TV, and Carol Ann immediately wakes up and she goes and kneels in front of it. She puts her hand out, and the hand reaches back out to her. It's like a kind of a skeleton hand, but then I was reminded of those old-timey cartoons where you see like the scent lines.
Oh,
You know
yeah,
what I
yeah.
mean? That's what it
Like Pepe Le
reminded me of.
Pew scent line.
Yeah, like what, or like when they put like the pie on the
Oh,
kitchen
yeah.
windowsill and someone's like drawn to it because there's weird scent lines,
It did look very much like that.
right? So more lines come out of the TV and shoot into the wall behind the parents' bed, culminating in the shaking of the whole house. And there's a little bit of damage that happens.
Yeah, they think
Every
it's like a 6.5 at earthquake. So
Yeah, they
6.5
really
on the
think
Richter
an earthquake
scale.
happened. So
Yeah.
everyone wakes up from this, and Carol Ann just looks at them and she's like, "They're here." Which is creepy, hearing from a little kid in the middle of the night. So the next day, just like you said, the dad's telling everyone he's on the phone. You didn't feel the earthquake? It was like a 6.5, blah, blah. And everyone's like, nope, no idea what you're talking about. At breakfast, Diane's asking Carol Ann what she meant by they're here. And she has to ask her a few times. And she's like, the TV people, just
Hmm.
normal stuff. So we're starting to experience little weird things here and there. At breakfast, Robbie's glass breaks, and his silverware is also bent for no reason.
Yeah.
So it's
Very
a little,
odd.
little spooky. Um, Carol Ann goes to the kitchen TV, one of those little like portable ones, and she turns it on and puts her face right up to it. That she's like, my friends, like it's very creepy. Dana, this skeeved me out. Dana's heading off to school, and the creepiest middle-aged men are in the backyard. Like you can clearly see she looks so young and they're like so old and gross and like filthy and they're like hitting on her as they're trying to dig
Yeah.
out a spot to the pool. Like it's not it's
And
inconsequential to the story, but it just grossed me out.
it's weird because like she's basically playing into it by giving them like the finger
Yeah.
and stuff, but
Hmm.
she's like laughing and joking with them as she goes to school, and her mother's in the window laughing at it like it's funny and cute.
That's so
So
gross.
yeah, it
It's really gross.
mind you, oh, other thing too that I thought was a little interesting. Diane, the mother, is 31. Dana is 16.
Yes.
So I was like, oh, not that I'm not shaming her for that, but I was just like, oh, maybe that's why you're laughing at the fact that your daughter is flipping these old men outside, flipping
She's
them
like
off.
the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I don't know. No shame. Whatever.
Well,
So
later on.
later on, their dog, whose name is E-Buzz for some reason, is in the parents' bedroom. barking at the wall and acting weird. So the dog knows, we know, come on, we know. Animals always know when something weird's going on, there's weird energy, weird people afoot, and so on. So in the kitchen again, Diane notices all the chairs spread out equally around the table and asks if Carol Ann did it. And she's like, no. She goes into the cabinet to get cleaning supplies after she pushes all the chairs back in. And when she gets up, all the table or the all the chairs rather are on top of the table now. They're all stacked on top of the table, which Carol Ann obviously could not have accomplished. So Diane's like, is it the TV people? And Carol Ann's like, yeah. And they both kind of acknowledge that they can't see any of these TV people, but there's something happening. So Steve is showing a model home nearby, and he lets the prospective buyers know his family was the first to move into this planned community, which I think is just interesting to know. They're the first people in there. He's selling all these homes. Weird stuff is happening in his house specifically. So just interesting. When Steve gets home, Diane races outside and drags him into the house, telling him to hurry, and she shows him something weird's going on in the kitchen. She pulls a chair away from the table, and she has the floor all kind of marked up with like a circle and like a trajectory and whatever. And basically, she pulls the chair out and puts it into the circle she drew on the floor, and when she lets it go, it slides across the room, which she celebrates by laughing and cheering. I
Yeah,
find that very troubling. I would not
I
be excited.
I honestly think that in between the time where she discovered this was happening and Steve getting home, she smoked a doobie because she was acting as if she was high and this was so amusing.
Sweet. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and it's weird because while Steve is looking at this and like looking at the floor and trying to think about what's going on, she's strapping a helmet on Carol Ann to set
right.
her up to do the same thing. Um, and I feel like that's a weird thing to use your child as like a test dummy, I guess. When
Yeah.
you don't know what's going on, like perhaps that's something dangerous. Perhaps there's some kind of electromagnetic force. Like you don't know what's happening. So I find it just weird.
And then she's like, "Come on, Steve, you do it too." No, bitch, you do it.
Well, she even is then talking about like it sounded like she had done it too. She's like, it feels like you get a
Yeah.
tickle inside and then you just feel like
Like you
free. Like,
can't breathe, but you can breathe at the same time.
I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a great
Girl,
thing to put your child through, you
it
idiot.
it sounded like she had been smoking a doobie and she was huffing some paint at the same time.
Maybe, well, she could have easily gotten it from those backyard creeper men. So,
Mm,
you know.
true.
So Steve and Diane go to the neighbors and ask if anything weird is going on in their house. They're like, no.
Which they have to be high at this point. They
They
absolutely
were
have to be high.
laughing. They
Oh
were,
my God. Because
yeah.
they go to this house and they're like, "Hi, Ted. I mean, Mr. So and so. I mean, okay, wait, hold on. Seriously, seriously. So we want to know. Like, it was so weird.
Yeah, they need to like get it together. This is just the beginning of like their issues. So like
Yeah,
this is not the time to fall apart.
not at all.
So when they find out that nothing is going on weird in their house, they're just like, we're gonna keep this between us, but like maybe we can call someone to like look at this. And Diane's like, who? To look at what? Right? Like what is we don't even know who to call. So that night, there's another storm, and it's more intense than the night before. In the kids' room, the creepy tree from outside has broken through the window and grown some kind of hands, kind of, and they reach in and take Robbie outside. Steve tries to head out the downstairs door because this isn't like a weird dream sequence. This is actually happening. This is actually happening to everyone. He goes to open the door to go outside, but the roots of the tree are like slamming the door shut. They're keeping the door shut so he can't get out. Eventually, he gets out a different way and he's trying to kind of climb up to get Robbie out of the tree. But while this is going on, Carol Ann is still in her room, experiences her closet door opened and a bright light is coming out, and everything in the room is being sucked into the closet. So these things are happening simultaneously. Um, Back at the Wizard of Oz like tree that's alive, it's actually sucking Robbie into the trunk, like it's eating him, which is weird.
Mhm.
Um, and again, back with Carol Ann, she is now getting sucked into the closet despite her best efforts to hang on. Steve does manage to get Robbie out of the tree, which is also now lifted out of the ground into a tornado that came out of somewhere. And the family is okay outside, but when they go back to the kids' room, Carol Ann and everything in the room, aside from the mattresses, are gone. So that's not good. We don't like that. So the family searches the house and the yard for her, including the muddy swimming pool, but no luck. There, she's not anywhere. Inside the parents' room, Robbie is standing there kind of in shock, like his eyes are kind of like far away. But he hears something and he starts screaming for his mom as Carol Ann's voice comes out of the TV that is on the static channel. Carol Ann is calling for her mom, but she's like, I can't see her. I can't see you. So they're kind of interacting, but she's like, where are you? Where are you? Um, it then appears that some time has passed. Initially, I thought it was like the next day, but I don't think it is. Steve looks like crap. He's at a local university talking to a paranormal or like parapsychology team led by Dr. Lesh, who wants to
Yeah.
investigate the house. Um, the reason I think this is maybe a little bit down the road, one of the reasons is because he tells the team when they get to his house, they don't go in the room anymore, that Robbie has been sleeping with them and their oldest Dana is out of the house a lot. So it doesn't make sense that it would be like just the next night. Probably like,
Yeah. And also you can tell by the way Steve looks, because he's now like he was kind of clean shaven before and everything, he was put together, and now he has like a 5 o'clock shadow. He looks very tired, he's very disheveled.
yeah,
And yeah, like Megan, you're saying they're very like used to not going in the room. Like nothing is phasing them at this point. They're like it's weird shit going on in here. So
yeah,
it's definitely not like the next day. It's probably like a
no,
couple at least a week later.
at least a week. I feel like that was the minimum. So he lets the investigators into the room, which is lively. The closet door is open. There's wind, self-contained wind in the room that's turning the mattresses and toys. There's electricity with a mind of its own, like, but not for things that are plugged in. Like there's a lamp that's going by that's not plugged in, that's like turning on and off. Um, all of this leaves Dr. Lesh visibly shaking. She's shaking because this is like insane. Um, and she's telling the family that their house may be haunted or they may have a poltergeist. And what's kind of funny, this made me laugh. She's saying this as like a coffee carafe is sliding across the table in front of her. She's like, well, your house may be haunted. And she's like, right in front of her. Like, maybe. Um, Also, while they're having this conversation, the lights flicker. So, Dr. Lesh lets the family know that poltergeists are connected to an individual person, whereas hauntings are connected to an area, a house, a neighborhood, a street, something like that. So, Dr. Lesh sets up shop and Diane turns the TV to static, calling out to Carol Ann. After calling out to her multiple times, they hear her response saying, "Hello, Daddy." Carol Ann says she can't find anyone, like she can't find her dad or her mom, and she tells them she's afraid of the light. Dr. Lesh says for her to stay away from the light, and one of the guys on her team, I don't remember which of the guys it was, if it was Marty or
Marty.
Ryan. Okay. He's like, maybe this is a hoax, and like her voice is coming through a CB radio in the house somewhere. Um, he runs upstairs to investigate. Just then, a bunch of old jewelry and watches and things just falls through kind of a portal in the living room ceiling. And Carol Ann says there's somebody else there with her. And she starts to sound scared and panicky. They hear a sound and a wind, I guess, wind, for lack of a better term, is whooshing past Diane. And Diane believes it's Carol Ann who has just moved through her and says she can smell her. She's like, I can smell her on my clothes. I can feel her energy. That's her. While everyone's kind of like, I guess, almost relishing that moment of like, oh my God, like her energy, whatever, they then hear a banging or like a stomping as a different entity makes itself known and it enters the room with this big kind of rush of air and almost an explosion, um, which is freaking people out. And there's a very loud growling sound. Carol Ann at this point can no longer be heard through the TV. So, Marty, you just said. This is the one
Hmm.
part I didn't write his name. He returns from checking out the house and he's like, I feel like something took a bite out of me in the bedroom. And he pulls up his shirt and he has all scratches and bruises on kind of the side of his stomach, which is definitely not a good sign. That's not what you want.
Yeah.
Um, so that kind of freaks everyone out further. And Steve tells Diane to take the kids and spend the night in town in a hotel. But she's like, I'm not leaving without Carol Ann. Dana, the older sister, on the other hand, is like, I have to get out of here. This is too much. She's having like a mental breakdown. So she goes to hang out with a friend, stay at a friend's house. So the paranormal team talk about kind of the goings on. They have all their equipment set up, and they speculate that the area where the jewelry fell from in the living room is the way out, and maybe in the house elsewhere is the way in, right?
Hmm.
Then they talk about the light, she said with air quotes, and how all the answers to all the questions are in the light. But once you're in the light, you stay there forever. So we're talking essentially about like the other side, right?
Yeah.
Um, Dr. Lesh goes on to kind of explain that sometimes when people die, they don't know that they have or they don't want to pass on, so they just hang around. Or sometimes people get lost on their way. And also that just like people, some ghosties are nice and some are mean, just like anyone else you might run into, right? So she kind of is explaining that to Robbie because he has a lot of questions about what's going on naturally because this is crazy. So everyone's sleeping in the living room. One of the guys from the team, again, Marty goes to get something to eat in the kitchen.
He had been eating everything in the house. He had already eaten the Cheetos. And then he's like, I'm gonna go get something to eat to Ryan. Ryan is the other person
Right.
that's
But
on the
like,
team.
I assumed they brought the Cheetos because I'm assuming, here's what I assume. If you're going to work in someone's house, stay there overnight, whatever, you're probably going to bring some food with you. That makes sense to me.
I
But
don't know.
he goes into the kitchen and in the fridge, he takes a giant steak out and then is like looking for a frying pan. That to me is very presumptuous and rude. You did not
Not
bring a steak.
not
Like,
only that, he put his hand in the box of like Ritz crackers, ate a cracker, and there was a free chicken wing hanging out in the refrigerator that he puts
right,
in his mouth before he pulls out the steak. It's
right.
like you are really making yourself at home, sir.
He's just raiding their fridge. I think that's super weird and rude. But like I said, I assumed initially with the Cheetos that like they just brought their own snacks, right? But the way he's tearing through all the other food, I don't know if that's true. That's gross.
He said this was his text for getting bitten by an unknown entity.
Or what about like don't do that job if you don't want to get bitten by an entity? I'm just saying, I don't know. So, um, while that happens after the thing, after eating all their food, he notices like the steak is slowly moving across the counter by itself with wet noises, which is was really gross. It was like a steak worm. It's
Yeah.
gross. Um, we also see that the other food in the kitchen is either rotting or doing unexplainable things. Like I don't even know how to describe what was happening with the steak. It was like stuff was coming out of it, and it was
It
like
was almost like it was eating itself from the inside out, like the meat was from the inside of
yeah,
the steak was coming outside of
it
the
was
steak.
really weird. It was really weird.
Yeah.
Um, so Marty, again, he's freaked out by all this, like the chicken wing he had eaten, can't say words, um, had maggots all over it. It was just gross. So he runs into the laundry room, which is right off the kitchen, and he's like splashing his face with water. But when he looks in the mirror, he sees that there's like a crack in his face, and he starts to kind of like prod at it and touch it. And then while he's investigating it, he starts to scratch it. And then he just starts ripping holes in his face, and pulling his entire face off, just revealing his skull. So that's weird. That's not what you want on your night of work, right? Um, and then he snaps back to reality and realizes that nothing has actually happened. So I would have been out at that point. Like, no, that's I'm okay.
He might have been on his way out, but he kind of got sidetracked by some other stuff going
He got
on.
some tri yeah, he got a little sidetracked. So back in the living room. The camera starts to pick something up. The equipment is picking up something big, some kind of energy that takes the shape of, it looked like a woman to
It
me
did. It did look like a woman at first.
coming down the stairs, and it either was collecting or shooting off some kind of energy before disappearing. On the recording, though, because they watch it back, you get kind of a better picture of what it actually is. It's like multiple orbs or people, like ghosts, many, many, many spirits who are kind of dispersing,
And
right?
they're all wearing hats.
Yeah, it was weird. It was like almost like a collection of like miners or something.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. They remind me of people who must have been in a mine or something,
Yeah.
because
Um,
it was a bunch of them.
there were so many, and it wasn't something that was visible when they actually looked at it, but in the video, in the playback, it was visible. Um, the next day, Robbie is shipped off to grandma's because they're like, this is too much. And he takes the dog. So the dog is safe for all the people who are worried about animals, like myself. So Dr. Lesh is like, I'm taking all the findings back to the lab, including the jewelry and the watches, which she, of course, confirmed that she's like, these none of this belongs to you. And they're like, no, we don't know where this like collection has come from. So she says she's going to come back with more help, but she's leaving Ryan in the meantime, which is good. We like Ryan. He's a team player. But Marty, however, is not coming back after eating all of your food and peeling off his face in your laundry room. So sorry.
Yeah,
So,
I do want to say right
yeah.
fast, the relationship that Dr. Lesh and Diane have built at this point, I find that it's very sweet. I can't find another
Yeah.
word for it, because you can clearly see throughout this whole deal so far that Diane is very distraught.
Oh,
She's
yeah.
very, very upset. She hasn't smoked a doobie in weeks, and she's on edge. And she is missing her daughter. And you know, the whole time Dr. Lesh is not not necessarily being skeptical. She's like, I believe you, and we're going to get your daughter back. And as soon as they
Right.
started seeing what was going on, she's like, I'm going to be here for you. And they even share a little booze together, because Dr.
Yep.
Lesh also has her own vices. And I really do like the fact that when she tells her, like, Marty's not coming back, but I'm gonna leave Ryan, and Diane kind of looks scared for a second, and she goes, but I'm coming back and I'm bringing
Yes.
reinforcements. And I was like, okay, girl. Like, I
Yeah.
just love that. She gives Diane a hug, and you can see the relief in Diane's face. And
Absolutely.
I really, really love that part. Like I told Megan earlier, I was like doing a steady cry through the whole movie. It was weird. Like I just had this one constant tear that was just coming down my face. And that part was like so touching to me, because I really could feel the like relief that Diane felt that Dr. Lesh was really going to at least come back and help them get her daughter back.
Absolutely. No, that's definitely a good point. They have a good relationship, and that's the person you want in that situation. You don't want someone to be like,
This ain't real. You don't want Marty,
no,
because
well,
Marty didn't believe
Marty,
anything from the door.
no. Well,
You know.
also, what a weird job to have if you don't believe anything. So I believe in situations like this, and this is actually common when you do have people like paranormal investigators, whatever, that the first thing they do is they come in and try to debunk or
Right.
explain. And I think that's important because everything isn't something, right? Not everything, but you need to also be open-minded. So he did seem like the science, both of them,
He
him and
was.
Ryan, they were both kind of like explaining science of like, it could be this thing, it could be this, it could be this, but Marty just maybe perhaps wasn't cut out for this kind of gig, I
I
guess.
I think he was because both of them, Ryan and Marty, were both skeptics. But I think that while Ryan was the person with the healthy dose of skepticism, who was like, I photographed like a toy moving across the floor for seven
Right,
hours, and it was time lapse, but it moved. So he's like, I've seen stuff and I believe, that something could be happening.
right,
While Marty was the complete skeptic, like he was basically there to be the control. Like, I don't believe
right.
anything at all. So yeah, when he actually is starting to see stuff, and he's the one who got bit, it's like, oh no, like this ain't for me. So
Yeah.
I
You
definitely
know
get
what?
it.
I'll tell you, my ideal team, Dr. Lesh, solid. Egon Spengler. And God, I almost couldn't think of his last name. Ray Stantz. Those are who you want on your ghost team.
I
Um,
want whatchamacallit too from Insidious. So
I can't think of her
Lin
name.
Shay,
I was gonna
but
say Lynn Shay, but I can't think of her character.
I can't either.
First, I was gonna First, I was like Patrick Wilson because he's so attractive, but I was
Well, if
like,
I'm getting in the rain, then
but
yeah, but
but in Insidious, he's actually one of the people with the problems, right?
right.
But
Hmm.
we'll take Patrick Wilson in any form if we're being honest. Like it's fine. That's totally fine.
So yeah, give
Raoul from
me.
Phantom of the Opera,
Oh
like
my God.
haunted, not haunted, demonic, Ed Warren, like whatever. We'll take it. It's fine. So, Steve's boss, Teague, or Mr. Teague, but Teague is fine. He comes over and he's talking to Steve about like you've been missing work, people miss you, whatever. Come take a ride with me. And he takes him up to a hill that's overlooking the new neighborhood they're building. It's in progress, and he offers him a new home and partner in this company they have because he's afraid he's going to leave and he wants to hang on to him.
Yeah,
It's then we
because
see that they're
he's.
standing next to a cemetery.
Ugh.
Yeah. And Steve is like, well, there's not really room for this like alleged home you're offering me. Um, But Teague is like, well, we own all this land and they can move it just as they've done before. That's called foreshadowing. Steve finds out that his home and the neighborhood he lives in, and probably many of the others in this planned community, were built on a different cemetery, which they removed, which is wildly unethical and gross. That's not something you should be doing. No one should ever do that.
Yeah.
And if you do that, if you do that, then you get what you get, and you don't get upset, you
And
know?
didn't he say that they did that in like the 70s? And this is 82. So
Yeah.
he said they did it in the 70s. And the thing is that Steve has sold 49% of the houses in this area. Um, how could he not have known, considering he sold half of the houses down there, that there was a previous plot that had a cemetery? That
So I'm
like,
wondering if like the way as a person in like corporate America that like sometimes people do things and pull strings and do things, put things together that you don't know about and they bring you in after. So because
perhaps,
Steve genuinely was like, what do you mean you move this? Like he really does seem like he has no idea. So maybe they were like, yeah, we got this plot of land. We'll let you know when the first round of things are ready to sell. Like it could very well have been something like that.
yeah, because he was
Um,
in a phase one house because they had phases. He was in the phase
yes,
one house, and earlier in the movie, he was selling someone a phase four house. And
right.
now that's why Teague is now saying you could be the first in the phase five house up near this cemetery that we're going to
That will remove.
move to another location.
Right. Um, and that's all gross and disgusting. So, at the house that night, Dr. Lesh has returned with help as promised and introduces us to one of my most favorite characters in this movie and in this franchise. She has brought along a psychic, Tangina, who is a teeny tiny little person with a very interesting voice, and she is small but mighty, we'll say.
Indeed.
She all but runs up the stairs to Carol Ann's room immediately. Dr. Lesh assures the family Tangina has cleaned many houses before. The dad, Steve, he's very skeptical about this. He's like, he's just not about it. He doesn't think anything's going to happen. He tries to trick Tangina because she's trying to talk to him, and he's like, I'm trying to answer her in my head. And, she's like, don't do that to me. Like, I'm not here for your bullshit. So, um, Dr. Lesh says that she thinks the kids' room is the heart of the house, but Tangina, knowingly, says this house has many hearts, indicating a very big problem. Tangina, who's very kind and sweet, tells Diane that her daughter is alive in the house. Tangina believes the point of origin is Carol Ann's closet, which kind of seems obvious, you know? Just saying. Even like the parapsychology people, like, oh, maybe there's a way in. I don't know. Maybe it's the vacuum like portal that sucked everything in before.
Yeah.
Just saying. So Tangina gathers everyone around and tells them that the spirits around Carol Ann are attracted to her light source, her life force, essentially. And she is distracting them from the actual light they need to go to. Carol Ann needs to help them cross over, but there's also a dark presence in there with her that's keeping her close and trying to kind of manipulate the situation. So they have a plan to get Carol Ann, and they start. Diane calls out to her, but it doesn't work. Tangina instructs Steve to call out to her since he's more intimidating, like the disciplinarian. She was like, yell at her, tell her you're gonna spank her. If she doesn't answer, just like get a response. So Carol Ann calls out for help. Diane um asks her about the light. So Tangina is now instructing Carol Ann to go to the light and to lie to her and say they're waiting for her in the light because they need her to do this. And she's saying that she's scared and, whatever. So Tangina also instructs them to clear their minds before they go into the kids' room, as this dark entity knows what scares them and uses it against them. Tangina stands in basically a flickering strobe light, I guess, from the closet. When I was watching that, I was like, oh, it hurts
Yeah.
because it was going on for like just a little bit too long. But Ryan goes downstairs to the exit portal, the one in the living room where all the stuff fell out of before. So their first test is to throw a few tennis balls into the closet to make sure they come out the other end because they have this theory. Um, so they want to make sure it works. It does. That's the good news. Tangina then asks for Diane, um, and she's instructed to tell Carol Ann to stop and not go into the lights. So now they're kind of changing the game. So they throw a rope into the closet, the bottom of which comes out of the living room portal, and Ryan just pulls it down because again, they're testing it. They're still seeing what's going on. But it has kind of like blood and gore on it. It's weird. Like it's not
Everything that's come out of there outside of the jewelry and stuff that came out earlier, the jewelry and stuff that came out seemed to have like white powder or something on it. It
right,
was
right.
like
Like
dusty.
yeah, I was gonna say like dusty.
But the tennis balls and the rope, they like you said, it's almost like if you've ever seen like amniotic fluid on a baby that's
Yeah,
congealed, it's kind of like that. Like
right.
it's some type of goopy slime that's
Yeah, it's
on that
it's
stuff.
gross. It's gross, essentially, is what it is. So this part I thought was kind of funny. So they're going back and forth about who's gonna go in to get
Yeah.
Carol Ann. So first Tangine is like, I'm gonna go in, and Diane's like, let me go. And Tangine is like, well, you've never done this before. And she's like, neither have you. And she was like, you
Good
know
point.
what? You can go. You can go. You can go in. Her timing, she just did like a little pause before she said it, and I thought just the comedic timing of that was very funny.
It
Even though
was.
this isn't like an out and out funny moment, it was just like a little quirky thing I thought was funny. So, um, Dr. Lesh is then sent downstairs by Ryan to stand by and pull on the rope when instructed by Tangina because they tie the rope around Diane and they sent her into the closet, which sounds weird. I know that. So Tangina then calls out to the spirits to cross over. She's like calling to them. She's like, there's safety in the light. All are welcome. And Steve's starting to freak out because he thinks kind of that they're setting up, I don't know, like Diane to fail, kind of.
Yeah, I think that he felt like she was going to betray because he maybe he didn't pay attention to earlier when
Yeah,
Tangina was saying Carol, the spirits are following Carol Ann because of her light. So she needs to lead them to the light, but not go in the light, which is why
right,
she was saying go to the light. But now that they're all at the light, because Tangina has told Diane to tell Carol Ann, don't go into the light, stop, just turn around. They may all go to the light at that point. So now Tangina is using her powers to call, but Steve not paying attention because, of course, in every movie where there's danger afoot, they shared a passionate kiss and hug beforehand. I'm like, yo, time's
there's
of
no
the
time.
essence.
There's no time.
Like
Like,
y'all can smoke a doobie and cuddle later on. Stop, you know.
right.
And so I
Yeah,
really do think that because he wasn't paying a lot of attention, he's just worried about his wife and his daughter. He's just like, oh, now she's saying all of a sudden go into the light. Who was
right.
she telling to go into the light? And I think
Yeah,
too, he did ask her, he said, how long is it going to take? Or when should we do it? Or how long should we wait? And uh Tangina ignored him because she backed up and started talking to the people to
right.
cross them over.
Yeah, I think
So
her lack of communication too, because that's when he started to freak out. Like
yep.
she's kind of showing different intentions or something, but she's just focused on the task at hand, and he was just focused on making out with his wife a moment before. So,
She did seem shady in that moment because when she backed up, I was like, "Ooh, what's she doing?"
right. Yeah, but like you got to give it just like a moment at least. So, um, again, Tina, who's Tina? Tina Turner. Tangina calls out to the spirits to cross over. Um, and Steve, in his freak out, starts to pull on the rope before it's time because Tangina had instructed, like, wait for my go ahead. He is pulling on this rope, um, and then he loses hold of it, which is dumb because he did the dumb thing. But a giant skull, like, comes out of the closet as if it's going to attack him. And that's what you get for being dumb and freaking out and dropping the rope. I'm just going to say it. We're all thinking it. I'm just saying it. So as he loses hold, luckily, Ryan and Dr. Lesh are pulling, and Diane and Carol Ann fall from the living room portal, covered in that weird, like, jelly nastiness, right?
Yeah.
And again, no thanks to Steve. He didn't really help at all in this situation, but they did come out. They dump them into the tub. So Diane and Carol Ann in the tub, they're okay. That's good news. They're okay. Tangina, then after doing this made me laugh too. She's like flips her hair. She's a
Right.
little hair toss. She's like trying to look cute, and she's like, "This house is clean." Like her little like weird southern. It's not even like a southern accent, but
It's
kind
not.
of like
Yeah, it's
almost a little.
interesting. It's funny because yeah, because Ryan is recording at this point
Right, right.
because they
And
are
she's
trying to
like,
document everything. She's like, "Oh, I'm about to be on TV. This is my chance. This is my chance, honey.
Such a-
This house is clean."
yeah, she was so funny. So from there, we see they kind of flash forward a little bit. The family is packing up to move the hell out of that house. Steve says he has to go to the office and pick up a few things because he quit his job because F that, right? Diane is going to dye her newly grayed hair because this situation has traumatized her. So she has big, almost like storm, like X-Men, giant like wings of gray in her hair. She says she's going to take a bath. She tells the kids to tuck themselves in.
Oh, and the older daughter is going out with a guy, so
Yes,
she has left.
she's out the house. The creepy clown doll is back. I know we were worried about where he was at, what he was doing. He's back. He's okay. He's back in his chair by Robbie's bed. Diane seems to fall asleep in the tub. Robbie, I think he actually did fall asleep, but he or just had shut his eyes. Awakened by a rustling sound. When he looks at the end of his bed, the clown doll is gone, and he looks around and nothing. He's checking like across the room. He's looking on the one side of his bed. It's not there. He checks over the other side and picks up like the dust ruffle, like the bed skirt, and there's nothing. When he picks up his head, we see that the clown doll is behind him and it wraps his arm around his neck multiple times and is choking him and dragging him under the bed, which again is still making my case for never trust a clown. Not a doll, not a person dressed as a clown, not a portrait, nothing ever. So Diane in her room, unaware of this, she's trying to relax on her bed as Robbie is being choked up by this clown under his bed. But then an unseen force starts dragging Diane up the wall and across the ceiling. So I just want to say, I know that Tangina cleaned the house. I can't imagine ever relaxing in that house, even though they're like about to move out.
Mhm.
Too much has happened for me to be like, oh, it's calm now. I'm just gonna relax. Like, no, this it's too crazy.
Another
Um,
thing too, they never asked because the whole thing is they talk about like a bi portal. I think they called it a bi portal. I'm not sure the actual word, but it's by something, meaning there's two openings in this house, right? So when she says it's clean, they never said, well, what about the portals? Are they still
did they
open?
close
Did
them?
they
Like
close
what?
the
Right.
portals? Like because apparently like
Just let
I
that
think
shit
at one
open?
point
Like
they
what?
said like, oh, this house just happens to have the portals, they just happen to be here, they've always been here, like that's just a spot
Oh,
for the portals to be,
right.
so they didn't ask enough questions.
Yeah. At the same time, if you've never experienced having whatever, I think it was like I want to say it's not bilateral. I was just watching Grey's Anatomy before, so I have like bilateral, but it was like a bi something. Um, if you've never dealt with that before, how do you know to ask that question at the same time? Do you know what I mean? Like if you've not experienced that in your home, like you're like,
well
well, do you shut the portals down? Or like, how does that
well they just
work?
experienced it, and so now at this point I'm like, where those portals go?
See,
You're
well,
telling me it's clean,
you're
but where are the portals?
you're being very smart about it, and I think they were just too traumatized to even think about anything. So
That is true.
as Diane's being dragged up and down the walls in the other room, the closet door opens once more, and the light comes back in, and the wind starts again, and Robbie and Carol Ann are trapped in the room as Diane is plagued by orbs and a weird skeleton monster. Um, Creepy, like a guardian of the door. She goes outside in an effort to get help. She's calling for help. She slips and falls into the pool, as mostly decayed corpses and caskets float up around her. She attempts to drag herself out as even more corpses rise up. I initially was writing skeletons, but that's really not a true indication of what, or true depiction of what we actually see. They are very corpsey, but like
They're almost skeletons. They're like
almost skeletal. They're
the final transformation is still pending.
exactly. Um, she manages to finally get out, being helped by the neighbors, but they won't go inside the house because it's too much. There's too much weirdness. Back inside, she reaches the kids' door, but is swept up in the closet portal wind that is trying to suck the kids in. They are still okay, but they're hanging on for dear life to like the bedpost or the blankets or whatever.
Mhm.
Also, a weird wormy thing is
Yes,
snaking its way out of the portal, which is
let's get ready to
gross.
grab them by the ankles.
Yeah. While all this is going on, Steve arrives home and sees all the lights flashing in the house. They try to exit through the front door.
He
So
arrives with Teague too.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
The mom and kids, just to clarify, are the ones trying to make their way out of the house, and he's outside with Teague. Um, but what's funny is, as they're trying to exit through the front door, like more caskets and bodies are popping up like through the floor into the even like the foyer by the door. So Steve just has this realization and he grabs Teague and he's like, "You moved the cemetery, but you didn't move the bodies," which also was a quote that I grew up with all the time. I was telling you before, this is a very quoted movie in my house. They moved the cemetery, but you didn't move the bodies. Yes. So finally, to him at least, everything makes sense. The family, and the dog, remember the dog? He's okay. He's still okay. They make it out the house. They're good. They get out just in time for Dana to also be dropped off. So she's like witnessing this and she's freaking out, like big time.
She's freaking out and she has a hickey on her neck.
She sure
Okay.
does. Which I was like, she was trying to get her mind off what was going on. Like, I guess, like, it's
Yeah.
crazy. But she's she's so freaked out that she's just screaming, even though her family's telling her to get in the car.
Right.
She's like, what is happening? She's gone. She's losing it. Um, So they all get in and they're okay. Um, and the whole neighborhood is basically coming apart at this point. There's like fire hydrants shooting water everywhere. There's actually like fires happening. There's energy shooting out of the Freeling house in specific. Um, and it knocks Teague, remember Steve's boss, it knocks him over and he's watching and he gets up and he sees the house folds in on itself and all but disappears in front of him, which is nuts. And all the neighbors, they see this as well. The family is out of there. F the neighborhood, whatever, none of our business. We see them check into a hotel in town, and Steve shuts the door. And then a moment later, we see him open it and push the TV out of the room, says no thank you, and shuts the door again. And that is the end of our movie. That's the end of
Woohoo.
Poltergeist.
Yes.
Wow.
What
That's a
a
lot. It's a
what a
lot.
ride. What a ride.
What a ride. I kept joking. If we have any really weird niche like B, C, D lover movies in the house, that I was going to review Poultrygeist instead. Um, which is a crazy movie with the tagline Night of the Chicken Dead, in case anyone was wondering. It's absolutely terrible. But yeah, I kept joking that we're gonna talk about that instead. But no, we talked about Poltergeist. Um, yeah.
Yes.
So I imagine you have some fun facts for us as
I
always.
do. I do. I do.
I'm ready. I'm excited.
All right. So this movie had a budget of 10.7 million, and this movie was a massive success, grossing about $121.7
Wow.
million worldwide. So
From how
they
much? What was the
from
budget?
10
10?
million.
Holy shit.
So they
Okay.
made it great, and it's honestly one of the highest grossing horror movies of its time.
Sure.
So for 1982, and it's of course a cultural phenomenon. It led to two sequels, a remake, and definitely debates about the poltergeist curse, of course.
Sure.
So the reception for the film has an 88% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, with critics lauding its creepy atmosphere, suspenseful storytelling, and emotional depth. Roger Ebert, I'm always saying his name wrong. Ebert gave it 3 out of 4 stars, praising the film's ability to create tension while maintaining a sense of wonder through, though it felt it leaned too much into the spectacle over deeper terror. So there's that. Then they said many thought that Steven Spielberg's influence gave the film a sense of adventure and warmth, contrasting with its horror, deep, darker horror elements.
Sure.
Now, the audience reception, they loved it. It was nominated for three Academy Awards
Wow.
for basically, what did I say? Here I am. Best visual effects, best sound editing, and best original score. And of course, it's been celebrated over time for its practical effects and its sequences, like the clown attack and the face peeling scene.
Ugh.
Those are classic scenes that people love, and it's
Great scenes.
lasting impact. Yeah. So, of course, there are some other things here. We have the Poltergeist curse. So many believe that this film has been cursed because Dominique Dune, who played Dana, the daughter with the hickey on her neck, she was murdered by her ex-boyfriend in 1982, right after the movie was released.
She sure was.
And then Heather O'Rourke, who plays Carol Ann, she died unexpectedly in 1988 at 12 years old from a misdiagnosed illness, unfortunately. And there's some other actors from the sequels who also passed away. And there's some other urban legend stuff that happened with the remake as well, meaning basically lending to this poltergeist curse. Now, there were real skeletons in that pool scene. So real bodies. They were actual human skeletons. And they said basically at the time, real skeletons were often used in Hollywood because they were cheaper than realistic plastic ones. Which is odd. That's
It's
true.
it's weird that they would be cheaper, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna say it right now publicly. My only hope is that one day Hollywood can use my skeleton in a movie. I feel bad like if, maybe because I don't know all the logistics of how they procure these skeletons. I'm sure it was all above board and whatever, but it's like if the people in their life wouldn't have wanted that, that makes me sad for them.
Yeah.
But hopefully it was just some like old goth people that were like, rock and roll, dude, like let's do it. That's my
In
hope.
their will, if I ever die, please use me in multiple horror movies as
Hollywood has the
props.
right to use my skeleton
Right.
in movies.
Well,
Maybe, hopefully.
interestingly enough, Diane Freeling, well, the character is Diane Freeling, but Jo Beth Williams, who played Diane, she did not know that the corpses or the skeletons in the pool with her were real. So she's playing her part, and they're all around her when she's in this pool scene at the end of or the climax of the movie. And she finds out afterwards that they were real. So that's pretty gross and
Yeah,
creepy.
yeah.
Now, this next point is let me say I'm going to flip my points because I have one after the one I want to get to, but I want to talk about this other one last because then we can talk about it together.
Oh.
The clown scene,
Mm.
it almost killed Oliver Robbins, who played Robbie.
Wow.
Um, when the clown's like hand goes around his neck, he's actually being choked because it's a mechanical clown, and
Oh.
it malfunctioned and it tightened really tight around his neck. And so Steven Spielberg had to like rush in and save him when he realized he was really struggling to breathe. So
Like, I'm just gonna reiterate my point of like, don't trust clown
clowns.
things. Just clowns in general. Just like don't. Mechanical clowns, people clowns. Like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They're trying to kill you. I'm sorry. Like,
This reinforces not only that, but also that poltergeist curse because it almost killed him, which is crazy.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Now, here's my final fun fact and the point
Mm.
that I want to make. Now, if you watched our Texas Chainsaw Massacre episode, and if you paid attention to the beginning of this when I said I don't respect Tobe at all, Tobe Hooper, I still don't. He was the director on this movie. However, It is rumored that Steven Spielberg was the real director on this movie because he had a heavy hand in most of the direction, and crew members reported that he was very, very involved on set and directed certain scenes himself. And so this leads a lot of people to believe that all the creative force behind the movie is actually Steven Spielberg with Tobe Hooper's name attached to it, even though he didn't do most of the directing.
That's
So
interesting.
yes, and like I was looking at this movie and I was like, this is Texas Chainsaw came out what, 1978, 4, whatever.
Yeah, something like that. One of those.
Yeah, and it's not that much time passed between that.
1974, sorry. Go on.
Okay, so almost 10 years gone by since that movie. And I was like, wow, did Toby really get this much better in this time? But
Mm,
no, he didn't. I don't think so. I would believe that Steven Spielberg did this because if you watch this movie, it does feel like a Steven Spielberg movie. It's giving
it
me
does.
it it gives me the ET vibes, which I hate ET, but
You love E.T.
but it's giving me those vibes. It gives me that magical whimsy feel throughout the movie. So
So,
yeah,
I, okay, I'll say this. Tobe Hooper, according to Wikipedia, is one of the most influential horror filmmakers of all time because of his attachment to Texas Chainsaw and Poltergeist. Those are the most notable. But I just wanted to look with that in mind, with that new information, because I didn't know that, to see what else he directed, if there was anything else. And it's saying he directed Texas Chainsaw 2, which was interesting. Um, he was a producer on other ones, other Texas Chainsaw, Leatherfaces. He, on TV, he worked on Salem's Lot, the miniseries. He did a Tales from the Crypt episode, which I would like to revisit. Um, Masters of Horror, but nothing else super noticeable, no,
notable.
notable, except for the music video for Dancing with Myself by Billy Idol. Um, so that's definitely very interesting. I'd never heard that before. But I wonder if that's true, like why Spielberg would let him have all like the credit. Like,
I mean, because he's still, if you look at the beginning credits, he's right there in the top billing too, because he is the writer
yeah.
and the producer. And so, you know, I think that it didn't matter because he already had writing credit, producing credit. Um,
It
and
didn't
so at
matter to
that
me.
point,
If I'm doing the work, I want the credit. You know what I
well, I mean, maybe he also was like, listen, Toby had a flop with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It was good, but it was a flop at the same time because again, it paved the way for other movies to it crawled so other movies could walk and then trot. Okay.
mean?
So so I'm sure there was a respect thing there. And I'm sure that Toby was like, this man writes amazing stuff because he's already written. At this point, Steven Spielberg is a name. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
he's a name in the industry at this point in 1982. So I'm sure that this was probably like, I'm gonna let you have it, even though, I've done a lot of the work, but I'm gonna let you have it because again you have to also realize that at the end of the day the director does have the final edit, so
Right.
he possibly didn't do the final, like Spielberg didn't do the final editing part, but
Mm.
he did direct certain scenes so that when Toby went to have it edited he would have the scenes. Because honestly, when this movie started and you see the idyllic town and everything, the way they're shooting it, I said, this ain't Toby. This is not Toby. Look
I
too
don't
good
know.
to be Toby.
I wish it's like one of those things too, because it's rumored that like we truly don't know what actually happened. I wish there was more like dirt. Like I want to know like from people on set that they were like actually like I want to, you know what I mean? Like I want to
Right.
really get into it. Um, but it's very interesting. That's very interesting facts, I think.
So, what else did you feel about the movie?
How did I feel about the movie? Well, I think this is like an epic movie. Like so many, pretty much everyone I know ever in my life has like known of this movie or like makes references to the movie or whatever. I think that it's well done. I thought that Joe Beth Williams did an incredible job acting in this movie. Um, Craig T. Nelson is I feel like
Coach.
yeah, he's consistent in everything he ever does. He's always
Yes.
coach in everything that he does, always, every time. Um, I thought the kids were great. I thought the skeletons were on point. Good job, skeletons. Partially rotted corpses. Good job to you. Um,
Zelda.
Zelda is amazing. She's amazing. I
The
love her
fact that
so
her name
much.
is Zelda on top of that just makes it even better. And
It's
we're talking about Tangina.
it's perfect. It's literally perfect for her. Um, Zelda Rubinstein, Precious Angel. She only passed away in 2010.
Mm,
Who knew? Um, she was the voice of the Skittles, candies in their long-running Taste the Rainbow campaign.
oh wow.
And according to the Wikipedia, she was also known for her outspoken activism for little people and her early participation in the fight against HIV/AIDS. So she sounds like a gem of a human.
Yeah.
Um, and her and Heather O'Rourke were the only cast members to have appeared in all three Poltergeist films. How do you like that?
Nice. Nice.
I love her. She was amazing. And an icon. Like her little like
Yes.
let me fix my hair for TV. Um, yeah, I don't know. I like this movie. I think it's a solid movie. I think the effects are very of its time. And that's fine for me. Like they did the best they could. At the time, the effects they did, and I'm more talking about like I don't even want to call it like CGI because it was so early, but like the way that they depicted like these ghostly kind of specters and energy, that like weird skeleton door monster thing, like
Yeah.
for the time it was probably like mind-blowing, you know. Um, I absolutely love Marty pulling his face off. I love it so much, even though it's very clearly like a mold, like a Play-Doh situation.
hmm
Um, I still love it so much. There's so much kind of like awesomeness about it, and I don't think we would have a lot of kind of modern horror like without it, you know? So I like it. Yeah, I like it. I think that's pretty much my thoughts. You covered kind of so much else of it, like the scoring and like the fact that it won awards because horror, like Demi Moore just talked about this when she won a bunch of awards for I keep wanting to call it The Purge. It's The
The
Substance.
substance.
I don't know why I want to call it The Purge so bad, but horror does not win awards. You know what I
No.
mean? It's an overlooked genre in general, and the fact that if not for story or acting, like it's still winning awards for like lighting or shooting or, scoring, I think that says a lot about it. Um, it was a solid cast for the time. And yeah, I think that pretty much sums up my thoughts about it. What about you?
So I had never seen this movie before.
That's right. I forgot. I
So
forgot.
this was the first watch for me. Though I was aware of like they're here. So I definitely knew that. But I will say that I looked at the time for this movie. The movie was an hour and 58 minutes, something like that. And I was like, oh, sweet baby Jesus. This is going to be a long movie. And I intended to get up and get a cup of tea in the middle of this movie. I was glued to my seat the entire hour and 58 minutes.
Yeah.
And that is so rare for me to not even break to look at my phone, to do something else. I was so interested in this movie. It was different for me. I have to say that honestly, as far as like the story building, the character building, they did a really good job with that. I honestly felt like this was a really well connected family. Like they had
Yeah.
scenes where the kids were teasing each other at breakfast. And like I said, the parents were smoking a doobie and like really sharing like some fun moments in the
Yeah.
bedroom that really made you feel like they were a loving family. And even like the way Diane doted on her kids, they showed her making the bed and making them breakfast and them feeding waffles to the dog. And, it just,
Yeah.
everything made it seem like such a nice family that I really did feel connected to it when, when Carol Ann went missing. And so, and honestly, I have to say, I thought that Carol Ann was the cutest little girl. I thought she was adorable. She just was like a little baby doll, and I just wanted to like, oh, like I just, she was so cute. And so,
She was very doll-like, yes.
yes. Some might say she was creepy looking, but that's okay.
Some people
Uh,
might say that. I don't know who it would be.
I don't know who
I,
either, but
I don't
still,
know anyone who would
yeah.
say such a crazy, terrible thing about a child.
And I would, but but this one I thought was cute. I didn't think Robbie was cute, but
No, no.
Robbie reminded me of character Bucky Beaver. Just because he had very
Okay.
large teeth, very large
You sure did.
front teeth, but like there's an actual character somewhere called Bucky Beaver. But anyway,
Okay.
but I
Hmm.
like all the characters. They did a really good job. I think that the story the story was very fast paced. It did not lag. Um, and they had shot everything that was in the movie was relevant. There was
Right.
nothing in this movie that was like a throwaway part or something you didn't need. It was just very well done. Like every little scene, you could see why it needed to be shown in order to push and drive the story forward, which
Right.
I loved. Like I said, the score was really good. The cinematography on this movie, besides the fucking strobe lights throughout, like even with the static on the screen when they would show people's faces, it was like really quick flashing, and I'm like, they're giving me a seizure with all this. But
Yeah, I feel like they definitely need to have like a warning. That's the
yeah,
movie that today.
yeah.
Like
Strobe
warnings with
warning,
much less have a
right?
warning on that.
Or
Yeah,
movies with much less, yeah,
that's what I meant. Yeah.
yeah. but but like honestly, like the cinematography was great. This is a movie where I can't believe that Hooper is connected to it. It does not
Like
feel
Toby Hopper, whoever, whatever, it
right.
doesn't
Who
matter. Yeah.
Hopper Hooper Toby. Um, I can't see any of him in this at all. And that's just going from the fact that his most notable other movie is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And there wasn't much change between that first one and second one or whatever. And he hadn't done anything else outside of coming to this. And so at the time, in the time frame. So it just does not feel like him. It feels like a Steven Spielberg movie. It's
It
well
does.
written, it's well produced. The directing was really good. I honestly really enjoyed it. I was not boohoo crying, but I was like silent tear crying through the whole damn movie.
Yeah.
Because it just connected with me. So I honestly really had a good time with this movie.
Oh,
So
well, I'm very happy to hear that. I know you're a tough customer. Um,
yeah.
but it's funny. So even going into it, like without getting into like a whole thing, I had a tough week last week, and the length of this movie, I've seen it before. It's a solid movie. I know that, but the length of this movie was like a little bit of a deterrent to me that I almost switch movies. But actually getting through it, it does not feel like a 2-hour movie. It really doesn't.
No.
Um, so I mean, yeah, it's really solid, I think. Um, and spooky. Like they do a good job. Like they were saying, who were you saying that like Ebert was saying they do a good job like building suspense and
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah. I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. Um, I hope they paid Joe Beth more for having to be in the pool with
Right.
dead bodies because
Swimming with the dead bodies.
yeah, yeah, gross. All right, well, what do you think about rating it? What do you give it on the bloody axe scale?
So I can't, I've already given it all my accolades. I'm giving it a 9. And that is high praise
Wow.
for me.
It really is.
Um I was kind of going between like 8. I was like 7, 8, or 9. And I kept going back and forth. And it wasn't a case where I needed to go in the middle because like the 8 just didn't feel right and the 7 felt wrong. And
Right.
it's not a 10 for me because it's not like I'm gonna give it a 10. I'm gonna give it a 10.
Oh man.
Game day change up, baby.
Whoa.
I'm giving it a 10
I did not see
because
that coming.
girl, me neither. So,
Wow.
because as I was just describing, I'm like, wait, but why am I giving it a 9? Um, I honestly, like I said, this movie had my full attention. I wanted a cup of tea so bad, but I was like, I can't get up. Like, I normally watch movies with headphones that are cordless so I can walk around. Like now I have corded earphones on, so I'm not going anywhere, y'all. But I normally have cordless earphones on so I can walk around if I need to, especially if it's not my review, because I know that I can always kind of go back and I'm hearing what's going on and whatnot. So I don't have to be like sat here. I did not move the whole hour and 58 minutes. I was
Wow.
here the whole entire time, and that's rare. And it was just a really good movie. I can't say anything wrong with it. Like I said, the effects are for that time. I'm not going to complain about their magical, mystical skeleton people, or the slimy little hand coming through the wall to try to
Right.
grab people's stuff, or the tree that came out of nowhere and just burst through the window and stole the kid and was about to
Well,
eat
like
him.
I said, with the it's like a Wizard of Oz tree that all of a sudden had like hands. That was like,
It
"Meh."
did, and it
Yeah.
like just grasped him and pulled him out and swallowed
Yeah.
him. I like the movie. The movie when that part happened, because it was early in the movie when that happened. I was like, oh, where is this going? And I was like, this is weird, but it made sense, considering that the house was haunted and whatnot. And that meant like the tree was haunted. You could tell the tree looked crazy anyway. And then even when you get past this house is clean. I thought it was the end of the movie. I checked and it was like another 10 minutes left. I was like,
You're like,
wait a minute. What
what's
else is going to
happening? Yeah,
happen?
yeah.
Yeah. And so I just honestly, I had a good time with this movie. Is it a movie I would watch again? I might. It's definitely one, if it came on, I would keep it on. I'm not going to turn it off.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if I'd be interested to see like the second or the third one, or the remake. I'm not
The
interested in
third
any of
one was
that.
good. The third one was good. Okay, so I'm gonna say this. When I was little, this came on TV. One and three were on TV all the time. So I wound up watching them a lot. Um, Two didn't make that much of an impact for me to remember as an adult, except for the villain that we talked about before. Uh, you
Yes,
said
Reverend
his name
Kane.
before. Reverend Kane, Stuff of Nightmares. But that's the only thing I remembered from two, right?
Mhm.
So three was solid enough, but you can't beat the first one. I feel like
Yeah.
it's like that with any movie. It's like it's very hard to beat the original. But we know I'm very biased about that. I have very strong opinions about.
I mean, but honestly, that is something that happens a lot. Your sophomore album, sophomore movies,
Right.
a lot of times they do fall a little short, and it is rare. And I mean, there have been movies out here that have stood just as strong as the first one, but it's rare to find those movies out there. Because a lot
Yeah.
of times when you have a successful movie, they try to recapture it, but they change something about it
Yeah.
that the combination and the formula just does not work the same anymore.
I
You
agree. Well,
know?
even I definitely tried to watch the reboot of this. Um, and
Yeah, I don't think I'm
I
interested in that.
couldn't get through it. Like I couldn't even I think I got through like the first 20 minutes or so and I was just like it's just not doing it for me because you know what it is too. And I'm sure this is the case for most, if not every movie, but you really get the impression in this movie that everyone working on it gave it their all. I know that
Yes.
sounds like a weird thing, like you assume that and everything, but like you
Even the
really,
dog.
even E-Buzz, but you
Yeah,
really feel like they gave it everything they had. And I feel like because that's so apparent, like it takes it to another level. Like everyone was really invested and committed, except maybe Tobe Hooper. We're not sure. Maybe he was just like at the craft services table the whole time, eating
right.
snacks. Like I don't know. Um, but wow, I'm impressed. That was
Yeah.
genuine shock on my face when you switched your sc-
Genuine shock for me. Those tens are hard to come by, and I didn't expect for this to be a 10 going into it. But honestly,
surprise. Yeah.
yeah. So what about you? What's your rating?
I feel like there's so much pressure right now.
There
So
isn't, but you've seen this before, so it's a different vibe for you.
no, it is a different vibe for me, but it's like I don't know that there's anything that could have made it better. I can't tell you that, right? Like I can't be like this would have made it better, but I can't give it a 10 because it's not I also grade it on how much I personally love it. Do you know what I mean? It's not based only on like the science
Right.
of the movie. So for me, because it's not my favorite movie I've ever seen, I'm gonna give it a 9 because it's a great movie. It's a solid movie, but it's just like not my favorite movie. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, no, I understand
So I have to, I can't give it a 10 for that reason, but I can't give you like a factual
that.
like breakdown of like, well, there's a inconsistency in the like I can't do that, but I'm
No, but
gonna
that's
stay with the
fair.
9. I'm gonna stay with the 9.
Listen, you know what I always say, anything over five is good. So it doesn't really
Oh
matter.
yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? For me anyway. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I definitely I think a nine is a good solid thing. That was where my first one was going, was with a nine. So
I'm excited to see one day like where things fall. Like we should make like a chart, like a one of those like linear growth charts. So like what's below a 5
yeah.
and what's above a 5, like just to see where everything kind of falls on that. Um,
I did start recalling our reviews to see what we have graded
oh,
things. I just have to go back to it. I took a little hiatus from it, but I figure at some point we might revisit it, maybe in
oh
an
yeah.
after dark episode.
After
We
dark.
we may revisit some of our older reviews to see if we feel the same way or not.
You know
So
what's funny? And I'm going to tell you a teeny tiny spoiler. She told me a few of them, and some of them that I rated low, I was like, I wish I rated them even lower than I did when I
and
knew them. So,
some of them that I rated low, I was like, why did I rate it this low?
right, right. So I think that will definitely be an interesting conversation at some point because
Yeah.
I think I was like, I was too nice about some of
Yeah.
them.
I
So, which
want
is
to
hard to imagine, but
I want to at least capture everything through 2024. And so we could get the full year of reviews.
sure.
And then we could just pick some. I'm not saying we're going to do all of those reviews because we got through, I'm going to say, because I remember in October we were up to September we were up to 13, or October we were up to 13 at least reviews. So we've done at least 15 to 17, maybe 18 reviews all last year.
Wow.
So, we're not going to do all of those, but we can at least pick up some ones that were interesting, like, Winnie the Pooh, and see how much lower Megan will rate that movie.
-2. I'm giving Winnie the Pooh a -2. I never want to watch anything by that director ever again in my entire life, ever.
That's how I feel about Toby.
I know. I was gonna say like he's my Tobe Hooper to the point that his name fell out of my
I
head, and
don't remember that guy's name either.
my brain will not retain it
The
because
only thing
except
I ever want to watch about him is Dinosaur
Dinosaur
Hotel.
Hotel. I know.
Yeah, that's it. And I can't find it anywhere.
What?
So no, I can't.
That's a tragedy.
You're gonna have to ask your special movie finder
I thought
person.
you were gonna say your special friend, which sounds so weird.
Well,
Like
movie
I was like, I don't have
person.
any special friends. I only have regular friends. Like,
I'll have to check YouTube. I haven't
sorry,
looked on YouTube to
sorry, Lou.
see.
No offense. No offense. He's only been like one of my best friends for like 15 years, but I'm like, sorry, that still doesn't give you the title of special. I can't give it to you.
That's
I'm
so funny.
sorry. I can't give it to anyone.
Oh my God.
Oh God, what?
Dinosaur Hotel official trailer for 3 years ago. I do see a trailer for it.
Did
I
they
think.
did they ban him from making movies because Winnie the Pooh was such absolute dog shit?
I don't know. I don't even think this is a real movie though. It looks too new. There's a Dinosaur Hotel 3 from 2024. Oh my goodness.
I like I can't.
Someone did a Dinosaur Hotel movie review 1 year ago. They called they did it for Dino-cember. They called December Dino-cember.
What the hell is Dino-cember? I'm not against it. I'm just asking.
I guess it's when you celebrate all the dinosaurs through December.
Oh my God.
I
Dinosaur Hotel. Oh wait, it says you can watch on Tubi. Hold on.
okay.
Oh my God, it says you can watch on Tubi. I'm not watching it. Wait, let me hit the play button and see what happens. Oh, it's asking me to install. I'm not doing that. I'm sorry.
I have
Um,
Tubi, so I'll check on Tubi. It's just weird. Oh, it's wait, the full movie. It looks like the full movie is on.
Amazon Prime for free.
It's on YouTube. It's on Amazon Prime.
It says, so when I Googled it, it said where to watch. Tubi, Fandango at home, Plex, Amazon Prime Video, Freevee, and VIX, but those last two sound like they're going to give you some kind of virus. So I would
Freevee
probably
I've
avoid
seen
them.
before.
Okay.
Freevee's okay, but I have Tubi, and I do see something here that looks like Dinosaur Hotel. It's an hour and 16 minutes, but I'm not sure. It says action adventure Dinosaur Hotel.
Well, what else would it be? Action, like a
I
romance?
I know. I want to know. I'm gonna have to click on it so I can see if they have the director.
It's going to be like Napster and just shut your whole computer down.
No, this is not it. This is right. Remember those days?
Yep.
No, this isn't it.
LimeWire. No. No.
Who would make this movie? This is by someone named Jack Peter Mundy from 2021. So this
Oh, I
isn't.
see that. Yeah, wait. Why is that? Maybe what's his face tried to claim credit for Dinosaur Hotel and if it isn't even his. Hold on.
That's crazy.
I don't even want to look up this person because I'm so mad
I
at
know.
them.
I'm gonna have to look him up though
Who
to see.
directed Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey? Blech. Oh God, I remember now.
What's his name?
It's like Reese Frake Waterfield, remember? It was like it's RHYS.
Oh
When you see the
yeah.
name, you're gonna remember it and hate it so much. Um, hold on. Directed by Selected Filmography.
See, yeah, that's not him. The only one that's coming up that's legitimate is by this other guy.
Oh, he was the producer only on Dinosaur Hotel, so maybe it's not terrible.
Oh, so maybe it is his. So let me continue to look through to see if I can see who the producer is on this movie. Ooh, the bright lights. Um,
Yeah, so
production.
our friend Reese only made the following movies: Bloody Mary, Easter Killing, the Area 51 incident, The Killing Tree. That was the one that I was kind of interested in until I wasn't because it
Yeah,
was about like a haunted, like an evil Christmas tree or something, and I just can't get behind that. Fire NATO, Winnie the Pooh 1 sucks. Winnie the Pooh 2 probably sucks, and some weird Pinocchio. Those are the only ones he actually made
yeah.
by
So,
himself.
so this one I do see it is this is the one because
Okay.
he is the producer on here. The director is Jack Peter Mundy. It is from 2021. The the little description says Sienna is desperate to win a large cash prize in a secret underground game show, but dinosaurs begin to hunt her down for the entertainment of the rich and wealthy. Can she be the last to survive the horrific night to win the prize? And there's like the whole little thing is like the rules are simple, and they're showing like these really bad CGI looking dinosaurs like roaring, someone with a gun trying to shoot the dinosaurs, them walking through caves. This is very interesting.
I feel like I would rather stick a spork directly into my leg at high velocity than watch that movie. Like, I really feel like that. I think I would.
Oh
If
man.
someone actually was like, do it right now, and they handed me a spork, like a metal one, I would just
I
right in my leg.
I
Yeah.
wish that right now that I could, because I feel like this is something that we could honestly like show the preview for it, but we are not trained enough on this platform to do things so seamlessly, so we're not going to do that. But I
I
am
just
going
keeps
to,
taking me back to Napster.
yeah, I am going to make sure that I send you the that I'm going to purposely send you the link to the trailer so you can look at it though.
I'll watch the trailer, but that's it. I'm
Yeah.
so mad at that. I don't know if I'll ever not be so mad at that man for making that movie. Um, oh, good. You just sent it to me right now, so I definitely have it forever. It's like the
Mm-hmm.
guy at the bar who's like, "Wait, I want to make sure you get my text when you don't want him to
Yep.
text you," and you're like,
Yep.
"Uh-huh." You tried to give him a different number. Okay, got it. Thank you. But then
Yep.
you could just block him immediately. I won't block you though. It's okay.
Oh, thanks.
That happened to me at Taco Bell once, just really, just really quick.
Oh my
A
gosh.
guy was online with me and he was just like sidled up to me, like, you know, when people do that like little walking sound, he was like, hey. And I was like, no. Like, you know, when you leave your house and you're like not cute, so it's like sweatpants and like a bun and just like you just look like a victim of some kind of Victorian like wasting disease, right?
You're
And I
just
was
out to
like,
get your Taco Bell.
I'm just picking up Taco Bell, dude. Like we're not, this is not a place where people come like and they're not feeling shame, right? It's just like not, you know. Well, like right now is when you're gonna do this. And I kept telling him like anything to get him to leave me alone. And he was just like, well, I just want to be friends with you. I just want to be friends with you. And I was like, he did coerce a
Any
phone number out of me, but
and
I had to block him immediately. So
anybody who wants to, and that's a whole nother story about how you really can't like turn people down. Like you can't turn men down
He
a
didn't
lot
let
of
me.
times.
He really would.
Yeah,
He was like, I just want to be your friend. I was like, I'm seeing someone. I wasn't, but I was just like, I wanted to kind of shut it down. And he was like, that's okay. You can have friends, can't you? Like he kept overcoming all of my objections. Um,
that's a whole nother issue. But
yeah.
the thing is, if you are in Taco Bell picking someone up, you really are interested in explosive diarrhea. So, like, we already know you have a scat problem, sir. So
Some
do
R.
not pass
Kelly shit.
go. Yeah, do not pass go. Do not pass do not collect $200. Like, no, thank
Uh,
you.
I'm like,
But
at least go to Applebee's. Like, what are you doing at
right.
Taco? That's very funny. Anyway, that took a little bit of left. Sorry about that. Um,
Yes, I don't have anything else. I'm gonna watch Dinosaur Hotel now that I know it's on YouTube, and
well,
I'll report back one day.
I'm so happy that your dreams are coming true,
They
honestly.
are, they are.
All right, well, I guess that's it. I don't have anything else.
All right, well, I guess I will go ahead and
Take it home.
get us wrapped on up. So, with that said, we thank you for joining us for another haunting episode of the Horror Ghouls podcast. And whether you see Poltergeist as a supernatural masterpiece or just a cautionary tale about real estate fraud, one thing is certain: building on the bones of the past is a surefire way to piss off the undead. So, if you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to follow us at The Horror Ghouls on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and your favorite podcast platform for more deep dives into the eerie, the unexplained, and the downright terrifying. And please don't forget to turn on your notifications because the last thing you want to miss is when we're here. So until next time, stay spooky. Never sleep with your closet door open because that makes you a psychopath.
Yeah.
And if you feel something watching you when you're alone, you never were.
Bye.
Bye, guys.